Sports.
It's a new era in Marlins baseball. There's the pool out in left center field at this new ballpark. Yes, great food, Cuban sandwiches, and even an aquarium here at Marlins Park, the brand new baseball facility here in Miami. This weekend, the Reds and the Marlins get together for the first time since the opening series of the year here on Fox Sports Ohio. And a pleasant good evening, and welcome to Reds Baseball. Along with Chris Welsh, Jim Kelch, we are indeed at this new ballpark, Marlins Park in Miami, as the Reds, after a day off yesterday, see no change in their magic number to clinch the Central, still sitting at 8 as the Cardinals were a winner last night. Now, Chris, this Marlins team going into this year had high hopes. They even were talking maybe a World Series appearance, but after a good start, things have gone kind of south.
Well, it just goes to show you that optimism coming out of spring training can quickly change when you don't play very good baseball. Although, through the first part of June, the Marlins were hanging right in there. They were the fourth best in all the National League, and then they had some injuries. They had some problems with their manager. He got into hot water early on, and then since June, they've had the worst record, or the third worst record in the National League. They haven't done very well at home. He's in trouble. Ozzie Guillen is. But I'll tell you one thing, they do have one great player in this ball club that you want to keep your eye on, Giancarlo Stanton. He has got some kind of power. I mean, the opposing team comes out of the warm-up area when he takes batting practice just to watch him. It's Mark McGuire-type power. He makes a very big ballpark here. Marlins Park seems small, so if you're on the mound for the Reds like Bronson Arroyo is, you got to be very careful of that young man.
Now, speaking of the starting rotation and the matchup for tonight's game, Bronson Arroyo will indeed go for the Reds. He's been very, very good in the second half against Jacob Turner, a young man came over from Detroit earlier this summer.
Well, Bronson Arroyo's been able to come up with that pitch right there and also an inside fastball to be able to get left-handed hitters out. Hitters that used to be able to hit him very hard now are neutralized, and he's throwing the ball about as well as he ever has. He's a cinch to be in the postseason roster, probably be that number 3 starter. Tonight he faces a very young guy, 21-year-old Jacob Turner, making only his 4th start of the year. He came over from Detroit. He's a former #1 draft pick, so they've got high hopes on him, but his time may not have come yet.
All right, well, catching Bronson Arroyo, as usual, is Ryan Hannigan. This guy has always been very good behind the plate, and his offense has come around a little bit more this year as well. We'll take a look at Ryan Hannigan when we come back. Ballpark, located right on the water. This is located at the old Orange Bowl site here in Miami. Chris, we promised to look at Ryan Hannigan, who's done a great job, as always, behind the plate. And this year, a little more offense from the catcher.
You know, when you watch Ryan Hannigan play and you see him play as much as he does, you've got to ask yourself the question, he might be the most indispensable player on this ball club, right? I mean, the Reds lost Joey Votto for a long time, and they gained a lot of ground on the rest of the league. They lost Scott Rowland, and they still were able to keep it together. But when you lose a guy like Ryan Hannigan, what you lose is magic with the pitching staff. What he does with this Reds pitching staff has been amazing this year. And his offense is, yes, you know, you love to see a guy hitting the number 8 spot, hitting 290, and getting the kind of walks compared to strikeouts and on-base percentage. But what I'm really impressed with is right down here is 298 earned run average as a catcher in the National League. That's about the best that you can get. And when you've got that kind of relationship with your pitching staff, you guys are going to win a lot of ball games.
Well, that's why they call him the unsung hero. Welcome to Miami for the Reds, their first and only visit down here this year, and the new ballpark located right on the water. Ford F-150 Motor Trend Truck of the Year by the Regional Tourism Network. Let us be your travel guide to Cincinnati, USA. Visit CincinnatiUSA.com. And by Skyline Chili. Game time is Skyline time. Stop by your favorite Skyline Chili today. Beautiful shot of downtown Miami. The ballpark located not very far from that at all. As we mentioned earlier, on the side of the old Orange Bowl football stadium for many years, a very popular venue down here. And there's Dusty. 409th win of his Reds managerial career came Wednesday in that 2-1 win over the Pittsburgh Pirates. And here's the lineup card that he puts out tonight. Brandon Phillip batting one. Wilson Valdez in the number 2 spot again, and then Joey Votto. Ryan Ludwig, Jay Bruce, and Todd Frazier in the middle, with Drew Stubbs in there patrolling the big center field here in Miami. Ryan Hannigan, and then Bronson Arroyo. On the mound for the Marlins is Jacob Turner. And Chris, let's take a look at our Farmers Insurance report card on this young man.
Well, he's a young guy. He grew up a Cardinals fan, drafted out of high school in St. Louis he was, and he had the honor of actually being coached by a former St. Louis Cardinal pitcher, Todd Worrell. And he also went to school with Mike Matheny's son, who is, of course, the current manager of the Cardinals. So he was Cardinal all the way until the Detroit Tigers picked him in the first round of the draft in 2009. He came over to the Marlins in that draft that sent, or in the trade that sent Anibal Sanchez and Omar Infante north of Detroit. And in fact, he'll be pitching to his old buddy and battery mate who was in that same trade, Rob Brantley, tonight. So big guy, 6'5" tall. 0-2 record overall. The earned run average is high. This is what he's done with the Marlins. Before he came to the Marlins, he had a little showcase time with the Detroit Tigers and did not pitch all that well. But he's done pretty well down here. He throws a lot of strikes and does not walk very many batters at all.
Well, I've got a look at the Reds here for the first time in his career. It's Brandon Phillips, Wilson Valdez, and Joey Votto at the top of Dusty's lineup as we are underway from Marlins Park here in Miami, Florida. And Phillips takes strike one in this game and this series underway. Brandon at 295, 17 home runs. He's driven in 74. Brantley will give this ball a look, but it is out of play. Well, he's been hovering as Brandon right near the 300 mark most of the year. He comes off a 4 for 13 series against the Pittsburgh Pirates. There's where he was. That's what he was against the Marlins in that opening series of the year. Boy, it seems like forever, and it has since April 5, 7, and 8 when these two teams got together in the first series of the 2012 season. And by the way, it was the first games that the Marlins ever played as the Miami Marlins. New name, new colors, new manager, and when they came home, a new ballpark. Brandon back-to-back multi-hit games as he comes into this one. Still leads all major league second basemen and runs batted in with 74. You mentioned, Chris, the Reds get their first look at this young man, Jacob Turner.
And, you know, anytime a team plays a pitcher for the first time, and you've never seen him before, they've never seen him in spring training, they have no idea except to watch some video about what he may have out there. And so the advantage, a definite advantage, lies with the pitcher right here, is he can come up with a surprise pitch or a surprise sequence that maybe the Reds aren't ready for.
In the air in this big ballpark towards center, and Justin Ruggiano will run that ball down for out number one. Take a look at the Marlins defensively, brought to you by your Ford dealers. Yeah, Brian Peterson, Justin Ruggiano, Giancarlo Stanton in the outfield. Left side of the infield, Greg Dobbs and Jose Reyes. The right side, Donovan Solano and Carlos Lee. And there it's Rob Brantley and Jacob Turner, who started the year in the Tigers organization, and as Chris mentioned, came over in that July 23 trade between those two ball clubs. Working here now in the big leagues with the old Florida, now current Miami Marlins.
What you're going to see in this ballpark, and this is our first view of it, Jim, and it's a pretty ballpark. It's very colorful, but it plays very big. It's 418 to dead center field. And what they tell me that it even plays bigger than those dimensions show. Tonight the roof is closed, as it is most of the time, so there's no prevailing wind coming in from left field, but still is a ballpark. You'll see a lot of balls fall in front of the outfielders because they've got to play deep, and balls off the end of the bat that are sometimes caught by a charging outfielder fall in here.
Yeah, I was told earlier they've only had the roof open for 7 games overall this year. They've played, what, 68, 69 home games, and Jeffrey Loria, the owner of this ball club, said, I told the fans we would protect them from rain and heat. And boy, it can get hot down here.
Well, their motto is, we've got you covered. So they're almost bound to it.
Nice play going to his right by Solano, and he'll throw out Wilson Valdez for out number 2. Yeah, very colorful here. The bright green is the prevailing color along the outfield wall. Big ballpark at 344 down the left field line. As Chris mentioned, there's the 418 in straightaway center. As you get toward the power alley in right center, it's the biggest at 392. And then along the right field line, 335. The wall basically 11.5 feet around most of the ballpark. In center, where it kind of angles down, it goes up to a height of 13.5 feet. there's that colorful, I don't know, what are you calling that thing out in center field? That colorful array right there of I wonder if they have a name for that.
Well, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but remember that Jeffrey Loria, the owner of the Marlins, made all of his money as an art dealer. And I think that he wanted to bring some type of artistic look to the ballpark. He certainly has done that. Let's hope that's all the way we see it right there as a static design, because when they do hit a home run, a Marlins player, that thing goes wild. Moving parts everywhere, flashing lights. It is quite an inside achievement of splendor, but let's hope that all weekend long we see that nice and turned off.
See that, what looks like the sun or a sunflower right in the middle there. I was told before the game that Dan Ugla hit one right off the middle of that earlier this summer.
You've got a couple of those pink flamingos in your front yard, don't you?
When I had a front yard, I did. I had to give them up, though. Yeah, very, very colorful here at Marlins Park indeed. Roof was open, windows were open when the batting practice time started, but closed as the Reds were starting to hit. As Votto is thrown out by the second baseman Solano, and the Reds go in order at the top of the first. Manager of the White Sox, Ozzie Guillen, now down here in his first year. And his record, as you see, 18 games under 500. And here's the lineup card that he puts out for the first game of this three-game series. Brian Peterson, Justin Ruggiano, and Jose Reyes at the top. Giancarlo Stanton, Carlos Lee, the former Astro, and Greg Dobbs in the middle. And then Donovan Solano, Rob Brantley, and Jacob Turner make up the bottom portion of the lineup against Bronson Arroyo in start number 29.
You know, I'm wondering if Arroyo doesn't mean steady in Spanish, because that's the way Bronson Arroyo has been lately. I'll tell you what, look at the earned run average. You just wonder if maybe last year was really, did it really happen to Bronson Arroyo where he gave up 45 or 46 home runs all year and they were beating him all over the place? Not so this year for Arroyo. Well, what a competitor, and he is on some kind of a roll.
As usual here in 2012, he has followed suit with what he has done most of his career, and that is have a much better second half than first half. And as of late, his last six, a 5-0 record and a 2.40 ERA. He gets ahead here quickly of Brian Peterson. No balls and 2 strikes. Peterson out of the University of California. He was at AAA New Orleans most of this year, hit .321 down there. He's been up and down 3 times between the AAA level and the big leagues. He's a guy that didn't figure in their short-term plans this year, but boy, when you look at the opening lineup this year in Cincinnati for this club and the lineup they put out there today, no less than 5 players are either gone, injured, or simply not playing well and are not in the lineup here tonight. Their opening left fielder, Chris Coughlin, who was the Rookie of the Year, 3 years ago, has had such a terrible year. He's been in the minor leagues almost all season.
Well, a lot of people looked at the Marlins over the winter because of all the money that they spent on free agents. They went out and they signed Jose Reyes, signed him to a huge contract. They went and got Mark Burley, a left-handed pitcher that the Reds will see tomorrow night. He's had a good year, but it has not been enough for Ozzie Guillen and company to be able to hang in there in the National League East.
Yeah, they spent close to $200 million on those three players, Reyes, Burley, and then the closer Heath Bell, who may have been, Chris, the biggest disappointment of all three.
Yeah. And of course, part of that disappointment happened in Cincinnati when he blew the last game of that three-game series. The Reds got 3 hits in a row, including a home run by Jay Bruce, to send the Marlins packing sadly.
Reds took 2 out of 3 in that opening series as Peterson is called out on strikes, and a good start for Bronson Arroyo. Here's a look at it from a name standpoint now. The difference between that roster now and earlier in the year. There's the 3 free agents that they signed in the offseason. They added Carlos Lee from the Houston Astros, but they've lost Ramirez in a trade, Infante and Sanchez in trades. I mean, they've had people going everywhere. Emilio Bonifacio, who they really liked at the top of their lineup, been on the DL 3 different times. He's out for the rest of the year, as is Logan Morrison with an injury. So the good play on the field and the new ballpark didn't quite mesh in 2012 as they had hoped. That ball caught by Phillips off the bat of Ruggiano for out number 2. Phillips, a part of course, the Reds' defensive setup behind Bronson Arroyo, brought to you by your Ford dealers. Ludwig, Stubbs, and Bruce across the outfield. Frazier in there after sitting out the last 2 games. Valdez at short. Phillips and Votto with a battery of Arroyo and Hannigan. Valdez, of course, in there again tonight. He's making his 4th straight start. 6th start in the last 8 games for him, with the absence of Zach Cozart, who when you talk to him says, you know what, I'm just feeling better and better every day. Although I'd be shocked if we see him down here. Would you?
I would be shocked too. I mean, he just started baseball activities the day before yesterday, or I mean, I should say yesterday, and take a little batting practice. You want to make sure that, especially with an oblique injury, that's a rib cage pulled muscle, that you don't re-injure that thing and start back at square one.
Here's a switch-hitting shortstop, Jose Reyes, who was really the biggest name in terms of the 3 players that the Marlins signed in the offseason. The former batting champion from a year ago of the Mets signed a 6-year, $106 million deal in the offseason to come down here. And you know, the biggest name that they did not get, as Reyes drops one out in the left and a base hit in front of Ludwig. Biggest name they did not get, Chris, was Albert Pujols. I mean, they flirted with him a long time.
Yeah, they did. They showed everybody in the baseball world that they're willing to spend money. And those that are around this ball club will tell you that that man, Jose Reyes, has been nothing but short of sensational since he's been over here. Has come out early to work hard. He's tried to tutor the younger players. He's kept a positive attitude despite this ball club going into the tubes early. I mean, to think that you're playing on a ball club that has struggled so mightily. 26.5 games out of first place. That's a long year.
Here's the young man we highlighted during the start of the broadcast, Giancarlo Stanton, hitting .283 with 34 home runs, 79 runs batted in. His 34 homers are second in the National League, second only to Ryan Braun of the Milwaukee Brewers, who has 38. Home run year last year for Stanton. He's followed that up with 34 already this year, so he'll set a new career best the next time he goes deep. Let's hope it's not this weekend. He was an all-star this year, but you can look at this season for the Marlins, and a lot of the issues that they started to have ran concurrent with him going on the disabled list. They were a pretty good ball club for the first 2 months of the season. In fact, right near the beginning of June, they were actually tied for 2 consecutive days for first place in the NL East.
He had a knee problem that kept him out for over a month. And when you lose your big guy for a month, sometimes teams react to that positively. Sometimes they go into the bag a little bit. And I think that's what happened to the Marlins. I mean, the same type of thing happened to the Reds, but the difference I think there was that the Reds continued to pitch very well, and the Marlins did not do that. They had problems in their bullpen. The Reds have never had real problems in their bullpen after spring training, losing Ryan Madsen early on, but they were able to recover from that. But Stanton is such a big part of this ball club. He's just a young guy. He won't turn 23 until November. So you got to pencil him in every year for about 40 home runs.
Boy, and you'd like to think when you're talking about the injury to the Reds that the depth of the organization has played a big part in that for Cincinnati.
And it's interesting when you break down his home runs. Only 13 of his home runs, 34 homers, have come here in his ballpark. 21 have come on the road. So from what I understand, and some people I've spoken with, is that he's actually changed his batting approach here in Miami. Not trying to battle the big fences here and how hard it is to hit a home run. He tries to get his batting average up here. He underswings a little bit, trying to hit the ball to right field a little bit more. When he gets on the road, that's when he lets it go.
Generally speaking, how did you classify the old ballpark, which had so many different names, and at the end called Sun Life Stadium?
I think it was still a pretty good pitcher's ballpark.
Yeah. Reyes is going, and Stanton strikes out, and so the Marlins leave the first base runner of the game, Reyes at first base. One complete here in Miami. Serious lawyers for serious injuries. Call 1-800-ELK-OHIO. Let's talk sweep for the Reds coming off that sweep of the Pirates at home prior to the off day yesterday. You see they have 9 sweeps now this year. Most impressive part of that is 4 of those have been on the road.
Well, the thing about this ball club is that they know how to finish. They know how to finish a series. They know how to finish out a ball game. And when you have the kind of bullpen that Dusty Baker can call on a nightly basis, they will finish. And that's one reason why they are where they are right now.
Dusty's club up against his right-hander, Jacob Turner, in inning number 2. He set the Reds down in order in the first. And now they're limiting his pitch count, aren't they, this year?
Yeah, they did last time to about 80 to 85 pitches, and they're on a 6-man rotation here in Florida. So it's one of these things where they're taking a look at him. They know they don't want to have him throw too many pitches, but they do want him to get good major league experience from the time that he came over here and got called up until the end of the season. He's got a nice delivery, nice repeatable delivery, and you could pretty much surmise that just by looking at his stats. He's only walked 1 batter and he struck out 17.
He gets Ludwig, Bruce, and Frazier here in the top of the second. Ludwig at 275 with 25 home runs. He's now equal with his RBI total from a year ago when he had 75 between San Diego and Pittsburgh. He's going to be retired here by Justin Ruggiano on a fly ball to center. So 4 set down by the right-hander Turner. Batter will be Jay Bruce. Turner pitched for both the Tigers and the Marlins AAA teams this year as well. He made 10 starts at AAA Toledo. He made 5 starts after the trade at AAA New Orleans, going a collective 6-2 in AAA this year. Look at Jay Bruce, who had his 9-game hitting streak ended on Monday in the first game of that Pirates series. That was the 14-inning game. In fact, he went hitless against the Pirates, 0 for 13. Comes in third in the league with 33 homers, tied for third with 96 RBIs.
Well, what you can't deny is that this ball club, the Reds that is, has struggled offensively recently. And they've won with the same formula the Dusty Bakers run out there all year long, which is good pitching, good bullpen, and you beat up on the other team's bullpen late in the game and you steal the win. But, you know, when you're getting shut down, you know, fairly well by pitchers that they have faced in the last week or two, you begin to wonder if it's not time for this offense to begin to kick it in a little bit and get into some kind of a rhythm. And that would include Jay Bruce swinging the little hotter bat.
Well, starting tonight, 18 games remain in the regular season, and we touched on it earlier. The magic number to clinch the Central Division is 8. Well, look at that big area out in center field that Ruggiano drifts back into to make the catch there. That ball was hit pretty hard, and there's still another 30 or 40 feet to the wall.
Well, early in the year when they first opened this ballpark and the Marlins came in here and they had a number of players on their team that would hit a ball just like that, and they'd come back to the bench and they look at their teammates and say, I hate this ballpark. And that's one thing that is a concern. Now, there hasn't been any official rumors yet of them bringing the fences in, but I would not be surprised in the next few years if they have a hard time getting free agents in here that they might do just that.
Todd Frazier was sat out the last 2 games, hits one into left field. It's going to be a single, and he's going to turn it into a double with good hustle. He never slowed down around first base, and he's rewarded with a 2-out, 2-base hit.
That's the way Todd Frazier plays. He's had a couple of days off. He's at third base instead of Scott Rowland this evening, and he rips that ball down the left field line. It's cut off nicely down in left field, but not until Frazier's able to just get in there.
Well, the Reds get their first hit of this game. First base runner, Frazier at second, and in scoring position for Drew Stubbs. Dusty made a point as that ball bounces away from Brantley over near the Marlins dugout. Stays in the field of play. It hits the fencing over there. Frazier moves up via the wild pitch. Dusty made a point in the game on Wednesday against Pittsburgh and again today in the pregame meeting with the press that he really needs Stubbs to play here to cover that big area from left center to right center.
Well, they do lose a little bit with Stubbs not in the lineup on the defensive side. But Chris Heisey plays a pretty good center field. Stubbs, however, covers a little bit more ground, no doubt about it.
Dobbs will field this ball and throw Stubbs out. And so the Reds strand their first base runner, Frazier. Bottom of the second upcoming. No score.
main thing for us is just to get out there during BP and take some balls off the bat, see how it's carrying, see how the dimensions are, where we need to be positioned and so forth. So that's really the biggest gauge that we use to determine what we want to do out there, is use BP as kind of a tune-up.
That's Stubbs talking about that big area out in left center to right center, 386 to 418 to 392, and how they're going to play in this expansive outfield.
And they got a funky little, I can't even call it a corner out there. They got that little round area with that art structure in left center field, and kind of it's in the shade out there. It's definitely a little nook and cranny. Of course, they had one at the old ballpark, Pro Player Stadium or Joe Robbie Stadium, Sun Life. Can't name them all right now, but they had a little nook and cranny there, and I guess they wanted to bring that little strange touch here.
They've got something a little similar to that down in Houston, also out there in left center field, don't they?
They have a berm, of course, that goes uphill, and the flagpole is actually in the playing area. Not so here.
Carlos Lee, we see him for the first time as a Marlin, and he takes strike 3, so Bronson Arroyo already picks up his 3rd strikeout of this game.
Well, he's got that curveball working, and you figure that would be the case when you've got a little bit of humidity, even when they close the roof and close the windows, turn the air on about 5 o'clock this evening. They've cooled this baby down very nicely, but there's still enough humidity to grab that baseball on a good tight curveball.
Here's Greg Dobbs. He's playing third base now for this club. That was the job of Hanley Ramirez. Remember, there was the big discussion when the Marlins signed Reyes as, would Ramirez accept playing third base, or was he going to have an issue with that? Initially, he said no, it'd be fine. Then it looked like he might have an issue, and he played over there, but it just really didn't work out, did it?
It did not.
They traded him away to the Dodgers, and Dobbs is getting an opportunity now to play third for this Marlins club. He's a veteran right now, 34 years old. Hitting .304 with 4 homers. He's driven in 36. Two and two now to Dobbs. Marlins have not enjoyed a whole lot of success down here at this ballpark. They are under 500 here at home, 32 wins, 37 losses. In fact, they are one of only 4 teams in the National League that has an under 500 record at home. Dobbs drifts back nicely to make that catch on the line drive by Dobbs for out number 2.
Well, they sold a lot of season tickets here, which is good for the Marlins. Unfortunately, as they've fallen out of the race, as I said earlier, 26 1/2 games out of first place in the division. You know, the attendance has really gone down. Now, we may see good crowds here this weekend because people will come out to see the Reds play. But overall, it's been a disappointment for the Marlins just about every direction you turn. They signed Ozzie Guillen, of course, manager this year, to a long-term deal. I think they've got 3 more years of Guillen here if they decide to bring him back, and he's making a nice penny as a manager here.
His most recent quotable quotes have been to address the injury situation down here and how he thinks it's been handled maybe a little bit too softly, and that next year will not be like that. I don't know, either a guy is hurt or not hurt. He kind of intimates that maybe players could have been playing but weren't playing. Stubbs to his left, runs down that ball off the bat of Donovan Solano. So a 1-2-3 second turned in by Arroyo. forward to passing along a little bit later on our Miller Time moment of the night, brought to you by Miller Lite. And if you're hitting the road, take Fox Sports Ohio's coverage of the Reds with you in 2012. Subscribe to MLB.tv today to see every Reds Out of Market game live, online, and on your favorite devices in HD quality. Visit Reds.com to order. Get all the details. MLB.tv. Baseball everywhere. Roof closed here. Yes, Reds fans aplenty here in Miami, as there are everywhere seemingly the Reds go. They're down behind the Reds dugout on the first base side, enjoying themselves, hoping to see a road Reds win tonight. They've done very well on the road this year. The Reds have 40-29, one of the top records on the road in baseball. Now we understand that's a proposal that just occurred right there. Overtaken by Reds baseball on the road.
I think I know the answer.
I would agree with you. Congratulations to that couple. We'll always remember where they became engaged, at a Reds game here in Miami. He's admiring that stone. To his right, Dobbs. And he will throw out Hannigan for out number one. Well, the Reds are the 15th and final National League team come into this ballpark. It's funny that they played the Marlins the first 3 games of the season, and now here they are, the last team to come in and check out the new digs down here. This area is called Little Havana, where the ballpark is located. Boy, this site was the site of some huge football games over the years when it was the Orange Bowl.
Well, you're not kidding about that.
You were talking about the names that the old ballpark had. Rob Butcher has in the front of the game notes all the different names in which this ballpark went by. Joe Robbie Stadium, Pro Player Stadium, Dolphin Stadium, Dolphins Stadium, Land Shark Stadium, Sun Life Stadium. Now they have their own ballpark.
And I have a feeling that it will be Marlins ballpark only until someone steps forward with a check account big enough, or checking account big enough, to take that Marlins off and put their corporate name on.
As we drove by yesterday when the team arrived in town, that was a question that was asked. I wonder why they don't have a corporate name to the ballpark. Only because they haven't been able to find the right person. The strikeout is the first of the game for Jacob Turner, and now back to the top of the Reds order, Brandon Phillips. In case you're wondering about the Cardinals, they do play today, but out on the West Coast against the Dodgers in the second game of that 4-game series. They were able to win last night over LA. Talked about as we looked at the wild card race in the National League earlier during the Reds Live pregame show, that 6-team race really in the National League wild card has the top 4 teams really not playing very well right now. Atlanta, St. Louis, the Dodgers, and Pittsburgh, the top 4 teams. But the teams that are playing the best are Milwaukee and Philadelphia. Now, the question is, do they have enough time to overtake those other clubs and get into that wild card game? You look at the Reds and their large lead of 11, the largest in baseball. You think, well, they're going to make the playoffs, they'll coast to the end, but really they're trying to overtake the Washington Nationals. They trail them by 2.5 games in the standings, 3 in the loss column, to try to be the number 1 seed. Dobbs caught that ball right off the top of the dirt. Phillips is out. Reds go in order for the second time in 3 innings. Bengals rookie Orson Charles 0. Browns tight end Ben Watson 1. Zach Jackson fills in his latest column. Fills us in, I should say. Plus, is Ohio Stadium too quiet? Urban Meyer wants to crank up the electricity in the Horseshoe. Find out what he said this evening on FoxSportsOhio.com. That's the left field area going over toward left center. The big Budweiser sign here at Marlins Park in Miami, Florida, the first year. And that's the club out there that Pick was talking about earlier, the Clevelander, made famous by a Clevelander club down on the South Beach, right?
Well, there is. It's a big, very fancy and hot dance club down on South Beach, and they bought that area down here in left center field, and they've got dancers in there. There's a swimming pool. Of course, there's cocktails, and that club, from what I understand, stays open until 3 a.m. every night.
It would not surprise me at all during this series if we see one of our cut-ins with Jeff Piccoro from the Clevelander. Would it surprise you?
Well, it would not. I mean, after all, he has to do the job of an in-game reporter, find out what's going on in the stadium, and you know, sometimes it's a tough job to do, but somebody's got to do it.
We always say, where is Jim Day? On this trip and in this series in particular, we'll be saying, where is Jeff Piccoro? And I have a feeling we'll know the answer. Leading things off here in the bottom of the third is Rob Brantley. Sends that ball down the left field line and try as he might. Ludwig could not get to that ball. Count 2 strikes. No score, bottom of the third. Marlins home after a 6-game road trip. Trip that took them to Washington and then to Philly. They took 2 out of 3 from the Nationals, but then dropped all 3 games of the Philadelphia series. So they wrapped up a 2-4 road trip with a loss at Philly on Wednesday. Like the Reds, enjoyed the off day yesterday. Back at it here now with the Reds in town for 3, and then the Braves for 3. This young man, Rob Brantley, we talked about earlier, came over in that deal with the Detroit Tigers. Omar Infante, Anibal Sanchez went over to Detroit. Turner and Brantley came this way. Former 3rd-round pick a couple of years ago by the Tigers, Rob Brantley. Spells his name a little bit differently than our own Cowboy. No E there near the end.
Well, as you watch a left-handed hitter like Brantley up there, you're going to see when Bronson Arroyo throws that fastball, the movement on his fastball. It wasn't all that long ago when he threw a fastball and that baby was straight as a string. But that has been the biggest difference in the last couple of years for Arroyo. Now, that's a curveball there.
It hung up a little bit, and it's driven into right field. A base hit for Brantley, cut off by Jay Bruce. So a leadoff single here in the bottom of the third.
But the biggest difference in Bronson Arroyo is his ability to throw that fastball to left-handers and have some movement on it. Here, this curveball that was meant to be on the outer part of the plate kind of backdoor stays right over the center of the plate. And Rob Brantley, nice short swing. They figure he's good for anywhere from 10 to 15 home runs a year. They love him to nail down the #1 catching job.
Well, their #1 catcher now, really, I guess, is John Buck. He signed a 3-year deal that started last year, but he has put up nowhere near the numbers he did that year with Toronto, warranting his coming over here.
Well, it's not going to be easy for Brantley to get the second base because Todd Frazier is playing about as aggressively as you possibly can from third base. I mean, he was about right here when that ball came over the plate, trying to get in maybe the head of the pitcher, trying to lay a bunt down. You've also got Votto charging hard. They're trying to be very aggressive to get that lead runner at second.
You see Frazier, boy, he's way in there. Turner just simply cannot get the bunt down. He's in the hole, 2 strikes.
And you got to figure maybe a rookie like that has not gone through the coaching of knowing what a butcher boy play is and not bunting into a trap. I mean, sometimes it's better to strike out if you're in a situation like that than put the ball down and play, have the third baseman fire at the second, and then you've got a double play.
Turner does not have a sacrifice in his first 3 games as a Marlin. Going bunt with 2 strikes, and he bunts right through it, and he's a strikeout victim already, number 4 for Arroyo.
Did the team a favor.
A reminder that tonight's Ohio Lottery Mega Millions jackpot is worth $12 million. The drawing is at 11 p.m. tonight, or just over 3 hours from now. Top of the order now, and Brian Peterson. Peterson, 26 years old, drafted by the then Florida Marlins back in 07, and he hammers that one up the middle. Stubbs will cut it off. Brantley stops at second base. So the Marlins get 2 singles here in the third, and now have 3 hits in the game.
Well, if you get the bunt down, you get the runner over on a ground ball up the middle, base hit, chances are you're going to score. So there's an example of how little things by a pitcher can help yourself put your team on the board, and that run may be the only one they get. So in the meantime, though, Arroyo's have got a chance to work his way out of the inning.
That will be Ruggiano. He has hit into 5 double plays this year. The Reds have not been a big double play team in 2012.
Well, you got fly ball pitchers, with the exception of Johnny Cueto. I mean, and a little bit of Mike Leake. But Latos is a fly ball pitcher. Bronson Arroyo is a fly ball pitcher, and so is Homer Bailey. And that's one of the main reasons why you're not going to see that defense turn a double play, but as often as other teams are. But they are very capable when they get a ball on the ground.
Phillips and Valdez play for a pair up the middle. Phillips cheating over a bit toward the bag. Votto way off the bag at first. Ball and a strike now to Ruggiano. You see the Reds second fewest in the National League, only to the Padres. By contrast, this Marlins team leads the majors with 139.
Of course, a lot of that also has to do with the number of chances you have with runners on base.
Yes, indeed. Marlins have given up the 4th most runs in the National League. That says a lot about that.
You know, when you're a right-handed hitter and you face Bronson Arroyo and you take a pitch like that, your whole at bat is ruined. Because you're thinking, I'm looking curveball and he throws me a fastball, a hittable fastball. I may not get another one of those the rest of the night. Was that my big chance?
Bottom of the third, scoreless game here in Miami. 7:10 game again tomorrow night, 6:30 with Reds Live. 1:10 on Sunday afternoon.
Brian Peterson hasn't faced Bronson Arroyo to know enough that a 3-2 count doesn't necessarily mean a fastball right here. Wonder if he'll send the runners.
Center field. That's a hit. Ludwig will cut it off. A run will score. That's Brantley headed for second, and in there with a head-first slide and a run-producing double is Justin Ruggiano. He's done a very nice job since coming over from Houston for this Marlins club, and he gives Miami the 1-0 lead.
He does get a fastball on a 3-2 count. At least it looked like that for me. and he got it right out over the plate. He wanted that ball inside. He got it in the inner third of the plate. And Ruggiano, 30-year-old young player, never really had much of a chance to play when he was in Tampa Bay, but he's able to come out here, get a lot of playing time, and they really like this young man. 21st double of the year for Ruggiano. Watched him in batting practice. Good, solid, flat swing.
They got him to play some center field when it looked like Emilio Bonifacio, just wasn't going to be able to stay healthy this year. He's done a very nice job for them. Justin Ruggiano. Now here's Jose Reyes with runners at second and third, and one out. Already a 1-0 Marlins lead. Reyes hitting .252 with runners in scoring position here in 2012. And he pops it up. Big out right here. Phillips handles it for out number 2. The batter will be Giancarlo Stanton. Stanton has followed up a very good month of August when he hit .313 with 10 home runs, with a not so good first half of September, hitting only .224 this month. That's with runners at second and third, 2 out. Miami has taken a 1-0 lead here in the home third. Strikeout victim his first time. Despite playing in this ballpark, what Chris talked about earlier, he's had to kind of adjust his approach. He still is the top hitter in the National League, home run to at bat ratio. He hits a home run every 12.8 times up, the best in the NL.
Well, he's got more power probably than anybody in the league, and I think that most people will agree to that. In batting practice, he routinely hits the ball opposite field into the second deck, which most left-handers don't hit it up there. He has already this year hit a ball off the scoreboard, the LCD screen in left field, down the left field line, broken some light bulbs up there. I mean, that's at the 401 mark, just above the playing field. That ball had to be on its way to about 480 feet. But again, it's not how far you hit him, it's how often you hit him, and he hits them often. And if you're Bronson Arroyo, you're thinking, all right, I got a 3-1 pitch to this kid, and this guy can hit the ball a long, long way. I mean, a long, long way back on May the 21st. Look out, scoreboard.
That was against Jamie Moyer, the Rockies.
Got to supply your own power against Moyer. Look at that. He did a little damage to that scoreboard. 3-1 pitch right here. He may not get anything real good to hit with the base open.
Another power threat, Carlos Lee on deck. There is ball 4. First walk issued by Arroyo. He now has the task of facing the veteran Lee with the bases loaded, 2 out.
Well, that was a perfect pitch by Bronson Arroyo, though. 3-1. Didn't want to give him anything good. It was a teaser, kind of a curveball that he dropped his arm on and throws his sidearm for. It looks like a strike for just a moment. But then Stanton gives up on it. It ends up outside the strike zone. Boy, you can't tease a hitter any better than that.
Here's the veteran Lee. First pitch swinging. Valdez will make the play, throw Lee out, and so Arroyo wiggles out of it with just the 1 run crossing the plate, and a 1-0 Florida lead after 3. 23rd under the lights at Great American Ballpark, and make sure you take advantage of a special Reds Sunday night baseball ticket offer. Purchase a view level ticket for only $10 or a field box ticket for only $20. Your Reds are on a mission to take the Central, and you can see it live and under the lights at Great American Ballpark on Sunday, September the 23rd against the LA Dodgers. For tickets, call 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com/tickets. That'll be the beginning of the final homestand of the 2012 regular season. The Dodgers in for 3, 21st, 22nd, 23rd. Then the Brewers in for 3. Then the Reds go out to Pittsburgh and to St. Louis. That'll mark the end of the regular season. And then if things keep going the way they are going, and the Reds own an 11-game lead with 18 to go, or a magic number, a clinching number of 8, they will be into the postseason for the second time in 3 years. We looked at that in the pregame, Chris, taking a look kind of where the Reds may be. And right now, if the playoffs started today, the Reds would be playing out in San Francisco, starting out there in a best-of-5 game series.
And that means that they would leave right from St. Louis the last game of the year and
head
head right out to Frisco. But, of course, a lot can happen between now and then. Dusty Baker's still trying to nail down that #1 seed. They're 2.5 games back of the Nationals for that.
Now, if they get the #1, they would still start on the road. Dobbs moving to his right makes that backhand pick, and they get Valdez at first base for out #1.
Hey, so far so good for this young man on the mound for the Marlins.
He's only allowed 1 base runner. That was the double by Frazier. If the Reds get the #1 seed, they would still start on the road, but they would have to wait to see who wins that wild card play-in game. They get into the best-of-5 series. That would start on Sunday the 7th seed or stay the 2 seed. That series starts on Saturday the 6th of October. Here's Votto, grounded out his first time. Joey playing in his 8th game since coming off the disabled list. His first back was that final game of the 3-game series against Philadelphia. He's not driven in a run or hit a home run since his return, but he has reached base in all 7 games. His average .339. There's a strike that went right off the glove of Brantley, the catcher. If he broke a string in the catcher's mitt, it doesn't look like it. He stays back there. He missed a strike. There's that Votto stroke solidly out into left center field and a base hit. Joey slowed down a bit. Then when the ball was bobbled by Peterson, wanted to put it into second gear and get on to second, but he just doesn't have that drive and power off that leg, does he?
Well, step #1 of getting back is to get that stroke down and hit that ball to left field. Step #2 is hit that ball with more authority. And in Cincinnati, his last few games, he was beginning to swing the bat well, but just not a lot of leg drive out of that left knee. And he'll get better and better. I think as you get closer to the playoffs, he'll get stronger and stronger. I still don't think he's comfortable sliding, and that may have been part of the reason for him not trying to stretch that into a double.
1-out single, second hit of this game for the Reds as Votto aboard, and here's Ludwig. Light out his first time. Last year, Chris, when the Reds were down here, they played that doubleheader. Had to get out of town in a hurry to avoid Hurricane Irene. Remember that?
I do remember that.
As it turned out, it really didn't affect the area much, if at all.
Got us out of town early, though.
Got us out of town early, yeah. Dribble to the first base side, and Turner will take it himself. It does move Votto along. He's in scoring position with 2 out.
Well, Turner's got a nice curveball. I think that's what's given, you may want to call it a slider. He throws both a slider and a curve. And he splits his breaking pitches about 50-50 between those 2 pitches. But the pitch he's throwing tonight, that little, I want to call it a slurve, really, because it's about halfway between those 2. He's got a nice bite to it. He's got good enough arm action. He does not throw as hard as he did when he came out of high school as the #1 draft pick by the Detroit Tigers. I mean, he was routinely throwing 95 to 97 back in those days, but his years in the minor leagues, now he's in the major leagues. He's learned a repeatable delivery. He doesn't throw as hard, but his control is much, much better, and pretty good looking young pitcher. 6'5", 220 pounds.
Well, Papa John's is giving away 2 million free pizzas to their Papa Rewards members over the next 4 months. If you aren't a Papa Rewards member, be sure to join at papajohns.com for your chance to win. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's. Bruce now ahead, 3 balls and no strikes. Best in the National League is Jay Bruce with 71 extra base hits going into action tonight, trailing only Albert Pujols in the big leagues in that category with 72. He swung at that 3-0 pitch and did not get a good cut at all. Hit the ball hard, but out his first time. So he's now 0 for his last 14. And now he'll get a look at a full count pitch. There's 246 runners in scoring position this year. He's a strikeout victim, and so Bruce is strikeout victim #2 for Jacob Turner. Reds leave a runner in scoring position for the second time in this game. Sports Ohio is brought to you by the JTM Food Group, creating great dishes together with the food service industry for over 30 years. By your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers. For over 30 Toyota offers available now, visit buyatoyota.com, including mobile. And by AT&T, the nation's largest 4G network. AT&T, rethink possible. Good overhead look at Marlins Park here in downtown Miami as we come back inside, and Bronson Arroyo walked 1, fanned 4, giving up 4 hits. Currently trails 1-0. He works to Greg Dobbs, the left-handed hitting third baseman, to start the Marlins fourth. Dobbs, then Solano, then Brantley. 6, 7, 8. Carlos Guillen's scheme of things. Dobbs hit the ball hard, but out into center his first time. Arroyo making his 29th start of the year here tonight, which means in the last game of this road trip, a week from this Sunday in Chicago, he will make number 30, making it 7 consecutive years of 30 or more starts.
Well, he's had about that same number of years in a row at pitching 200 innings or more. Of course, last year he was 1 inning short of that, had 199. I give him that one.
Yeah. No question, he is the quote innings eater. Never has missed a start as a Red. In fact, he's making tonight start number 230 in his 7-year Reds career. Deep into right field, off the bat of Dobbs, and that is a rarity. A second deck home run here at Marlins Park, off the bat of Greg Dobbs, his 5th, and it's 2-0 in favor of Florida. And the home run artwork goes off out in left center.
Greg Dobbs just absolutely crushes this baseball right here. And he's had a history of getting good hits and big hits against Bronson Arroyo. Came into this ball game with a batting average over 450 against Arroyo. Left-hander catching that ball coming right inside on him, and he unjammed him about 450.
Well, the Marlins now have a 2-0 lead. Donovan Solano, longtime property of the Cardinals in their minor league system, signed as a free agent this offseason, getting a chance here with this Miami Marlins club late in the year.
They really like this young man. I mean, he spent 9 years in the minor leagues, as you said, a product of Barranquilla, Colombia, only the 12th Colombian to make his presence in the major leagues.
Bruce will track this down. Solano is out number 1. Taking a look at Dobbs' career home run numbers. He hit 8 for the Marlins last year. The most he's ever hit was 07 when he hit 10 for Philadelphia. Here's the catcher, Brantley. Singled sharply into right center his first time. mentioned that he was part of that big deal between the Tigers and the Marlins. Omar Infante, Anibal Sanchez going the other way. But coming back this way, Turner was considered the #1 prospect in the Tiger organization. Brantley was considered the #7. So they get 2 top 10 picks for those 2 veterans. They really haven't done that much for the Tigers. Tigers are 1 game out behind the White Sox in the Central, and if they don't win that division, it doesn't figure that they're going to be into the postseason, as they are 5.5 back in the American League wild card with a lot of teams to jump.
Well, just think about the teams that may not make it into the playoffs this year. I mean, you're talking about big money teams, the Red Sox, possibly the Yankees, Detroit, the Los Angeles Angels,
yeah,
Philadelphia. I mean, right here in Miami, the kind of money they spent this year, and the Mets,
and the Cardinals, really, you can throw them in there.
The Cardinals possibility, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. All teams that may or may not make it into major leagues, and you're like, wow, I guess it's a little more difficult than it used to be to buy a pennant.
Hit well into right center, but Stubbs is going to get to it. And there's that expanse of outfield that Dusty was so adamant about getting him out there to cover. He covers it to get Brantley for out #2. As a reminder, get ready for Reds action 30 minutes before every game. That's with Reds Live, presented by Ray St. Clair Roofing here on Fox Sports Ohio. Everything you need to know to get ready for Reds baseball on Reds Live, only on your exclusive home for Cincinnati Reds baseball, Fox Sports Ohio. On this trip, it's all about Jeff Piccoro and Reds Live. I imagine he's out there at the Clevelander right now.
Well, as I said earlier, Jim Kelch, it's a tough job to do when you're the in-game reporter, but sometimes you just have to go into dangerous areas and give a live report.
We understand that he's going to give us a report a little later on, maybe next inning, I guess, on the Bobblehead Hall of Fame that they have here at Marlins Park. There's the Clevelander Club right beyond the left center field wall.
I got to hand it to Ryan Ludwig. I mean, how many outfielders or any left fielder that has come in here to play, how many outfielders have to go out there and concentrate on the ball game when they hear the bass beat of a nightclub? I mean, maybe 60 feet behind them. Minor leagues do not prepare you for that.
How about this? The Bobblehead Museum. Amongst the bobbleheads there, Marty and Tom.
He loves a good bobblehead. But here in Miami, bobbleheads are taken to a new level. Owner Jeffrey Loria went to the Houston Astros visiting clubhouse manager, a guy by the name of Steve Perry. He had this huge collection, and he bought it from him and brought it here and added his own. The Cincinnati Reds have a huge row. Everybody from Barry Larkin to Adam Dunn to Sean Casey. There's even broadcasters here. You know, I wonder, when will we find a crafty left-hander or a Jim Kelch bobblehead? You think we might have one of those in the future? I sure hope so.
I don't know, Chris. I just don't see it happening. Do you?
I hope you're not holding your breath, because you've held it for a long time.
Now, we saw the Joe Nutsall left-hander one up there. I mentioned Marty and Tom, and I understand that it's actually the Marty and Joe bobblehead that's displayed down there.
You know, what makes that particular display unique is that it shakes. They've got some kind of a motor or something beneath it that vibrates the whole case. So those bobbleheads shake continuously. So it really is a great bobblehead museum.
One of the many interesting sights here at Marlins Park in Miami. Fifth inning, 2-0 in favor of Miami. Frazier leads it off. 57 pitches through 4 innings for Jacob Turner. We told you that sometime between 80 and 85 is when they usually come to get him. He's been very efficient in this game, only allowed 2 base runners.
Now he's pitching a little more carefully to Todd Frazier. Frazier's got the only hit, or actually the only extra base hit the Reds have had on the night. That double down the left field line, first time up, second inning.
And he will reach for the second consecutive time, bringing the tying run to the plate in the person of Drew Stubbs. First walk by Turner.
Well, he's only got 62 pitches, so he's probably got another 20 or 25 to be able to go before he's out of the ball game. If he has an efficient inning here, he can go 2 more.
You go back to his last start as a member of the Tigers and his first 3 starts here. He had only walked 1 batter in 26 and the 3rd innings until that walk right there.
Well, he probably got called up a little bit early when he came up with the Tigers in July. I get the feeling that that was kind of a showcase deal where they're going to run him out there, and they knew that they were going to make a trade for some veterans. They ended up with Anibal Sanchez, pitcher, Omar Infante from this ball club, and they wanted veteran status in Detroit because that was a team that was going somewhere this year. So they were willing to give up on Jacob Turner, but you know, you get a little bit more for a player when he's in the major leagues. So they ran him up there a little bit early, did not pitch all that well with the Detroit Tigers, but he showed enough to these Marlins scouts that they included him in the deal. Probably the main guy in that deal. He, along with the catcher, Rob Brantley, and one other player.
Carrying well to the wall in right, but run down out there by Stanton. Stubbs hit it well.
Yeah, he's got to figure, you know what, if I hit that ball back in Great American Ballpark, they're on their feet cheering me. That may have been a hit and run because I saw that Todd Frazier was off with the pitch. Would have been an unusual time to go, but nonetheless, trying to get something going against a young pitcher. He gets a little cutter, and that looks like a slider moving away from him. It just got underneath that ball. The ball carries pretty well down the lines, but not so well in the gaps.
Gunning for his 15th. Stubbs came up a little shy, so here's Hannigan, 1 on, 1 out. Listening to you, Chris, talk about Jacob Turner and having him brought up early reminded me of years ago when the Tigers brought up Cameron Maben at what, 18 or 19 years old, maybe a little bit early. And we talk so often about different players when they're brought up too early. It really seems to detract their progress.
Tough to paint that with a big brush, but in some cases it helps to come up here and get your lumps. You learn how to do it. In other cases, it does set kids back a ways. It hurts their confidence. They come up here and they realize that maybe their stuff's not good enough, so they go back down to the minor leagues. They struggle down there. it's more of an art than a science, I think, is to determine exactly when to bring a player up to the major leagues, whether he's a pitcher or an everyday type player. It used to be that they would bring pitchers up and they put them in the bullpen first. And they pitch them wherever, blowout game, end of a game, extra innings, wherever it happened to be able to get the kid in. And then they'd work him in, and then maybe the next year he'd try to be in the rotation and go from there. But now it seems they have a much more formatted approach.
Stanton coming in, second baseman going out. That was Solano, but it's Stanton who calls him off and makes the catch, and Hannigan gone.
I don't think there's any question that Homer Bailey is one of those that you're talking about that may have been brought up too early and struggled when he was up here. Had some success, but for the most part struggled. It just took him a while to kind of get his act together. And you wonder if he may have been able to shortcut that had he spent more time in the minor leagues. It seemed like every time he pitched in his first couple of years, it was a circus event. They took out signage on billboards. They promoted that Homer Bailey's finally in Cincinnati. And here's a young kid who didn't know his way around a major league diamond, but he was the hope of the future, and I think that was unfair pressure to put on a young man like that. Fortunately, he's come around. He's been one of the better pitchers the Reds have had this year.
He, of course, was very good on Wednesday night against Pittsburgh, lowering his ERA now to under 4, picking up his 11th win, most he's ever had in a season. It's going to be a real battle to see who the Reds decide to go with as that 4th starter in the postseason. Both Bailey and Leake have made good bids as of late to be in there. In fact, the Reds have had 12 quality starts in their last 15 games. Twelve quality starts in the last 15 outings. Certainly Arroyo has been a big part of that. He's had a great month of August carrying over into September. September has been traditionally the best month, bar none, of his career. 25 wins, the most he's ever had in any month. ERA of under 3.5. And that certainly has carried over to this year. Leadoff walk to Frazier, but he's not budged. Stubbs sent one to the wall and right, caught by Stanton. Hannigan's ball to right, caught by Stanton. And now Arroyo, a strikeout victim, number 3 for Turner. And so the Reds leave their third base runner of this game and still trail 2-0, middle of 5. and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers are proud to donate a Toyota Tundra to the American Red Cross. First responders from 8 area Red Cross centers will join Reds manager Dusty Baker on the field prior to the game, when this historic organization will be honored and then awarded the Tundra, compliments of your Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky Toyota dealers. For tickets, call 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com. How about our AT&T trivia question on this Friday night, September the 14th? Which 2 active players hit the most home runs before turning 23? Which 2 active players hit the most home runs before turning 23? Nothing Marlins as they come to the plate, bottom of the 5th. Top of the order featuring Brian Peterson and Justin Ruggiano and Jose Reyes. Marlins get a run in the bottom of the 3rd. An RBI double by Ruggiano. And then the solo blast by Greg Dobbs. Second deck shot here in right field to start the 4th. Peterson a base hit his last time. He's 1 for 2.
Peterson, one of these players that came through the minor league system for the Marlins. Drafted 4th round, 2007. Out of Cal Irvine. In fact, he helped take his ball club to the College World Series during his tenure there.
Talked earlier, he is playing out in left field. Chris Coughlin, who was the opening day left fielder and former Rookie of the Year, has never really been able to duplicate that 09 season. Stubbs comes charging in, and he will call off Brandon Phillips and make the catch. Boy, Brandon was charging out there like he thought it was going to be his ball, but Stubbs calls him off and makes the catch.
Well, that's good hustle by Brandon Phillips. I mean, he may be a little theatrical at the very end of that, but the fact is that in this ballpark, and I'm sure that they were warned in their overall scouting report about this ballpark, that more balls will fall in this shallow area here than they will go over the outfielders' heads, because you've got to play deep because you don't want to give up a triple with a ball over your head. So balls like that oftentimes here fall for base hits. And Brandon Phillips goes back on a ball from an infield about as well as anybody in baseball.
So I guess you really can compare this to, say, Coors Field in Colorado, Petco Park in San Diego.
Very much so.
Ruggiano, an RBI double his last time. He's 1 for 2. Ruggiano, originally drafted by the Dodgers, went from the Dodgers to Tampa Bay back in July of '06, along with a fellow who's on the Reds bench these days, Deoner Navarro.
Never really got a chance down in Tampa Bay. They had such a deep outfield of young, very high-ceiling players down there. The Ruggiano really spent more time on the bench than he did playing. All of a sudden, you're 30 years old and you're getting a chance to play every day. That's good news for him.
That used to be the story with players coming up through the Yankee organization.
Yeah.
Probably could be playing for other big league clubs, but they're stuck in the Yankees farm system.
You were hoping for a trade back in those days. Actually, what happened to me. Went to San Diego in a 6-player deal. 4 went to San Diego, 2 went the other way.
Ooh, hard up the middle and a base hit there. Off the bat of Ruggiano, so he's 2 out of 3. Give us the gory details of that.
Well, that was back in 1981, and the Yankees were notorious for developing good talent in the minor leagues, but George Steinbrenner had no patience for bringing a young player up and going through the learning curve. So what they did was they bunched a bunch of young players together, and they traded for established players. And in that particular trade, 4 of us went to San Diego. All 4 went immediately to the major leagues, and they got 2 players in return. They got John Pasella and Jerry Mumphrey.
The
Not
old
exactly
Cardinal.
household names, but the Yankees needed 2 players, and that's what they got. It was a break for all of us, the rest of us. There's no room at the inn on the Yankee Major League roster for a kid coming out of AAA.
Yeah, Brett Gardner, when he began starting for the Yankees a couple of years ago, the first young guy that came up through their system that started in a long time out there.
Well, I mean, the fact about baseball is that you can look at the back of a guy's baseball card once he gets to be about 26 or 27 years old, and you can predict pretty much where his level of play will be the rest of his career. So there's no reason, if you can afford it, to go through the chance of a young player either making it or not. Why don't you just go get a veteran? You know what he's going to do.
Phillips diving, it tips off his glove and rolls into shallow center. Another hit for Reyes, who
that was
picks
a double
up his
tip.
Second of the night.
That was a double tip right there. I think it went off of Arroyo's glove, and then it went off of Brandon Phillips' glove.
We'll see if we can pick that up.
Second one in a row back through the box. That's off Arroyo, and Brandon Phillips tips it as well.
The old double tipper.
Well, what a remarkable catch that would have been had Brandon just been able to get his glove maybe an inch more towards second base, as it was fully outstretched. They've hit the ball hard in this inning off of him.
Now a chance for Miami to extend what is already a 2-0 lead. They now have 7 hits, about hit the Reds 7-2. Stanton, who struck out in the first and walked his last time up there. Arroyo closing in here in the 5th inning on 90 pitches. That'll be the infield fly rule as Phillips makes a basket catch of that ball for out number 2.
Boy, is that a huge out for Bronson Arroyo right there. The most dangerous hitter in that lineup, and he tamed him very nicely. Let's take a look at that at bat. Giancarlo Stanton and Bronson Arroyo, pitch by pitch, brought to you by Mazda, as we always do. First pitch curveball. It's going to get him ahead, kind of think about, all right, I'm going to throw you a curve. Then he throws a fastball right down Broadway. And another curveball again. This one of those teaser curves, and Stanton goes for it that time.
Now if he can entice Lee, get through this inning. He was up there with the bases loaded, 2 out back in the 3rd, and swung at the first pitch and grounded out. 0 for 2 tonight.
Carlos Lee doesn't know what to do. I mean, he's faced Arroyo an awful lot. And he's had a measure of success against Arroyo. But last time up, he swung at the first pitch and made an easy out. And here he takes a couple of pitches and he finds himself down 0-2.
Well, one of the players that he was traded for certainly has hurt the Reds this year. Matt Dominguez came over from this organization, going to Houston. Had that big 3-run homer against Aroldis Chapman. Yeah. And then the next, 2 days later, against Johnny Cueto.
Yeah, he can hit a fastball. Dominguez, that is. So can that guy.
Lee drives it into right. Runner being waved around. Here comes Jay's throw. It's offline. And now they've got Lee between first and second. Runner coming home, and the throw short hops and gets away. Run will score. Down to second. Out there. Finally, the inning is over, but 2 runs cross the plate for Miami. Lee is down, and I'm not sure if he is hurt or just exhausted out at second base. But it's 4-0 Miami as they get 2 on that base hit into right field. On that wild play that ended the bottom of the 5th inning.
Well, the throw by Jay Bruce is offline. He just simply looks awkward when he throws it, holds on to the ball. It's going to be fielded by Hannigan. No play at the plate. Now they've got Carlos Lee in a rundown, but coming around third base is that lead runner. And that's when the throw from the shortstop, Wilson Valdez, short hops Hannigan. And Reyes, who's very fast, gets in there. They throw down to second base and finally get Carlos Lee. It looks like he jammed his neck or his head as he went head first right into Wilson Valdez. So
yeah, it looked like the right leg went into the shoulder of Carlos Lee.
That's a bad looking slide. It had to turn out awful when you slide like that.
He's left the game, by the way. They have a new first baseman. Greg Dobbs has moved from third to first base. Gil Velasquez has taken over at third. So if we get a report on Carlos Lee, we'll certainly pass that along. Meanwhile, Jacob Turner working with a 4-0 lead into the 6th.
Well, if nothing else, Justin Turner or Jacob Turner is consistent. First time through the order, he threw 36 pitches, allowed 1 hit. Second time through the order, 38 pitches, allowed 1 hit. He is really taming this offense, which, by the way, has not been all that wild in the last week or so.
Well, just taking a look at the scoreboard, they have not put an error up as of yet.
Well, then it's got to be
But there's no way that Lee should be charged with 2 RBIs because that runner had stopped at third base.
Right.
So we'll just have to wait and see how they eventually rule this.
I think in your next life you ought to be an official scorer.
I like scoring.
I didn't notice.
That'll be handled by the right fielder, and that is the first out.
Since you do like scoring so much, I will give you the scoring
Would
play.
you do that? Thank you.
On that one RBI hit by Lee.
All right.
The out went 2-4, 2-1-6.
2-4-2-1-6.
That should open the lock.
Chasing that ball is Stanton, and he'll make the running grab.
And nobody out there for him.
So Reyes, who had stopped at third, they're going to say that he scored on a fielder's choice. No error is given to Wilson Valdez. No runners left on in that inning, but now a 4-0 Miami lead as the Reds bat here in the sixth. Quickly 2 out. Joey Votto, one of the 2 Reds hits in this game. Boy, hits this ball hard, but right at Solano, and the Reds go in order for the 3rd time here on this Friday night. Middle of the 6th inning, 4-0 Miami. Now it's time for them to bring you to the Reds. For more information about how you and your group can get on the Fox Sports Ohio Fan Express to Reds Country, simply call 513-765-7600 or visit reds.com/Fan Express. Fan Express will be at Nippert Stadium tomorrow for the UC football game for everyone to see, so check it out. The Fan Express.
That is the home run structure. And they don't get a lot of chance to celebrate with that home run structure, but they have tonight with the home run right field by Greg Dobbs.
Speaking of, Dobbs leads it off here in the bottom of the 6th. 4-0 now. Fish in front.
Now, we talked about the home runs at this ballpark, and if you use Great American Ballpark as a starting point, you're going to realize that it's a lot harder to hit a home run here than it is back in Cincinnati. Pitchers love pitching here. Hitters do not like hitting here. Look at the difference. In nearly the same number of games, more than twice the home runs in Cincinnati, or just that twice the home runs, than they do right down here in Miami. Amazing.
And now Dobbs gets still another hit, his second of the night. He's hit the ball hard 3 times. Has 2 hits to show for it. He is on to begin the bottom of the 6th.
Yeah, this has got to be the only sport, baseball, other than golf, but I mean only team sport, where you play a game in a venue that might be significantly different than a different venue.
No question.
I mean, all soccer matches are played on pretty much the same type of field, same dimensions. Football, the same way. Basketball, certainly same dimensions, same height of the rims, and so on. But in baseball, you get all these quirky different things that affect the ball game, and they affect oftentimes the outcome of the game and the success or the failure of the team that plays in those ballparks and the type of team that you field depending on how your park is.
You mentioned golf. One of my favorite sports, tennis, has a different surface at different places. Your point is well taken.
I think it's a lot more fun like that. In fact, it was kind of boring, I thought, back in the 70s and even into the early 80s when there were so many ballparks that looked alike. There were those round multi-use stadiums like Riverfront, Three Rivers Stadium, Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia. They're all the same. In fact, you go to the ballpark, you weren't sure where you were. So I do like the quirkiness. Like Logan Ondrusek up and warming in the Reds bullpen.
Arroyo will throw his 98th pitch on the 1-1 offering to Donovan Solano. There's Logan. Curiously, no action out in the Marlins bullpen, although Jacob Turner is sitting at 83 pitches through 6. To the mound. There's 1. There's 2. Double play. Nicely done. Started by the former Gold Glover Bronson Arroyo.
Well, he doesn't get a lot of double plays because he doesn't get a lot of ground balls, but he's a good fielder. And he snags that ball and throws it right on the money. I mean, he leads Wilson Valdez perfectly, and you erase the base runner.
2 out for Rob Brantley. Brantley, the catcher, a base hit in the 3rd and flied out in the 4th. What city was named one of the top 3 places to visit in 2012? What about Cincinnati? Book your weekend getaway at CincinnatiUSA.com. 4-0 Marlins in front here in the home 6th inning. 1 in the 3rd, 1 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th. Reds have amassed but 2 hits and a walk. Only 3 base runners against the youngster Jacob Turner here tonight. And ball 4. Second issued by Arroyo. And Turner will bat for himself here in the bottom of the 6th. A stretch of games for Arroyo. He's won 5 straight decisions, 8-1 in his last 10 starts. Really on the line now here tonight with the Reds trailing 4-0 in the bottom of the 6th.
I'm a little surprised to see him out here to hit in this inning, Jacob Turner. He's at 83 pitches. They last time said he's going to throw between 80 and 85 in his last start. I think maybe because he's throwing the ball so well, they're going to run him out there again.
Frazier tried to keep that ball fair and thought it was. Brian O'Nora called it a foul ball.
Well, this is when you really learn to pitch. You know, later in the game when you've already got 80 to 90 pitches under your belt. I mean, later in the game, not early in the game.
Well, his starts he's made with the Marlins, 80, 80, 81 pitches in his first three. 83 so far here today.
A very quick last inning. He had a 9-pitch inning. So that's probably why he's out there. No action in that Marlin bullpen.
Strikeout of Turner puts an end to the bottom of the 6th inning. The Marlins leave a runner and are stranded 5. Reds need to get the offense going. Down 4-0. Four nothing Marlins. We play into inning number 7. Greg Dobbs, who had earlier moved from third to first with Carlos Lee's exit from the game. Big part with a home run earlier. That was back in the 4th inning, his 5th of the year. Since then, the Marlins have added a pair, and there's Justin Turner back to the mound for inning number 7. This is the most pitches he has thrown since coming over in the trade. We mentioned 81 his last time out at Washington. 83 going into the 7th inning.
Well, he hasn't really thrown any pitches under stress. The Reds offense has not put him to that test yet, so they're going to run him right on back out there, see if he can have a nice easy 7th the way he had a 9-pitch 6th.
And get the middle of the Reds order. Ludwig, Bruce, and Frazier trying to get the best of Ozzie Guillen's club. He was, of course, the skipper of that 05 White Sox team that won the World Series, defeating the only Astros club to ever go to the World Series, 4-0. Ending an 87-year drought between World Series titles for the White Sox. Ludwig 0 for 2 leads things off. Wide out. Tap back to the mound. walked one. That was Frazier back in the 5th. The leadoff walk, but Frazier never budged from first. Now Ludwig at 3 balls and 1 strike.
One thing we've learned here tonight at Marlins Ballpark, that the wave is alive and well in Miami.
Well, in the city right on the water, you'd expect the wave, wouldn't you? When's the howling start? That's what I want to know. There's ball 4, and the leadoff man is on. Reds fans, for a quick and delicious meal the whole family will enjoy. How about JTM's beef or chicken Philly steak kits? That's JTM. Now the Marlins bullpen has sprung to life as Jay Bruce bats. Lined out, struck out, 0 for 2. Ryan Webb, a right-hander, up and throwing in the left field corner for the Marlins.
I mean, doesn't it happen almost every time? You're going to get a young pitcher out there. You're going to let him bat in the bottom of the 6th inning or the bottom of the 5th. He's near his pitch count. You're thinking, all right, you kid, I'm going to get you back out there for one more inning. What does he do? He walks the leadoff hitter. Now you send the pitching coach, Randy St. Clair, out there to do 2 things. One, to try to offer some words of encouragement, which he really doesn't want to hear right now, and then to give the bullpen some time to warm up. He doesn't want to hear it because he knows walking the leadoff hitter is the wrong thing to do.
Well, he got away with it in the 5th. Let's see what the Reds do here in the 7th.
It's like touching a hot pan. The kid knows after he did it that he shouldn't have done it. Doesn't need to be told. How many times have I told you not to touch that hot pan or walk the leadoff hitter?
Well, he gets Bruce on 3 pitches after falling behind 2-0. Jay is now 0 for 3 in the game and 0 for his last 16. 1 out for Frazier.
Boy, does he define streaky or what?
No, there's no question. Player of the week this last week in the National League. An incredible time for him. And just as quickly, he can go right down into the valley again. Frazier, a double and a walk. He's been on twice.
Let me get your feedback on this, Jim Kelch. Jay Bruce was named Player of the Week last week, and then on Monday he faces Wandy Rodriguez, who he was, what, 2 for 21 or something ridiculous off of?
Yeah, usually didn't start.
And ever since that time, he hasn't had a hit. He's got a Wandy Rodriguez hangover.
The last 2 or 3 times the Reds have faced Wandy, maybe even more, Jay would be out of the lineup. But Dusty put him in there in the first game of that series on Monday. That was the extra inning game. He went 0 for 5, but against Rodriguez, he was 0 for 3 with a run scored. That was the beginning right there.
Got to give a little kudos to our producer Josh Hall for reminding me about that particular coincidence.
Years from now, Jay will be asked, who's the toughest guy you ever faced? The name that'll pop up, quite possibly, Wandy Rodriguez. Now Turner's fallen behind 3-1. Reds are 1 errant one away here, having 2 men on for the first time in this game. A single base runner in the 2nd, again in the 4th, again in the 5th. In the air. Ruggiano calling. Ruggiano handles it. 2 out. Reminder that after every Reds game, Fox Sports Ohio will break it down. Interviews with Dusty Baker, possibly some of the Reds players. That's Reds Live post game, brought to you by King's Honda and the King's Auto Mall. Visit KingsHondaUSA.com. Reds fans aplenty, including that young couple that became engaged here tonight, Marlins Park. Not those two.
Not yet, anyway.
Drew Stubbs 0 for 2. Drew hit the ball to the wall back in the 5th inning against Turner. That was with Frazier aboard. That would have tied the game had he hit it another 2 or 3 feet. Just got under it. Now he bats with a runner on and 2 out. Again, the Reds have never had in this game more than 1 base runner on. In the air. Dobbs is over there. Is it playable? It is, right up against the wall. First baseman handles it in foul ground, and the Reds again strand a leadoff walk. This time Ludwig. Joe Morgan bobblehead. This bobblehead is the final of the 2012 Big Red Machine Series and is free with a full price paid admission to the Reds Hall of Fame and Museum on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays in September while supplies last. For more information, visit redsmuseum.org. Get back to that AT&T trivia question we asked earlier. Which 2 active players hit the most home runs before turning 23? What was your guess?
Alex Rodriguez is one of them. I thought maybe Ken Griffey Jr. might be on that list, but the obvious answer would be Giancarlo Stanton.
I actually thought Jay Bruce was on that list.
Well, you know, that would be another good guess. Logan Ondrusek, he's been awfully good since being recalled from the minor leagues. He went down. He was a victim of the numbers game when Devin Mesoraco had to serve a suspension, left the Reds one catcher short, so they brought up Deanna Navarro and sent out a pitcher, and it was Andrusic. Throwing the ball much better, feels good about himself. We'd love to throw a 0 on the board right here to keep the Reds in this ball game. They're only down by 4, but the way they've hit the ball tonight, seems like the score is bigger than that.
Frazier makes that ball catchable and foul ground for out number 1. As you like to say, they are in slam distance right now.
Yeah. I wish I could claim that I made that up, but I stole it.
Heard you and Tom the other night talking about your new stat, not your new stat, but the one you like to be talking about.
Another one I stole. The
probability win.
Probable win stat.
Yeah.
For the opposing, or a pitcher pitches simply 7 innings, regardless of how many runs he gives up. If he pitches 7 innings, he's probably going to win the game.
Turner's gone 7 tonight.
Well, let's see if we can disprove that. PWS.
Ruggiano 2 for 3. Drove in a run, scored a run tonight. Andrusic last worked on Tuesday in that Pirate series. 1/3 of an inning, 1 hit allowed. He gave up the hit to Alex Presley. Retired Andrew McCutchen works here tonight. And after getting the leadoff man, he walks Ruggiano. Here's Jose Reyes. He has a pair of hits tonight. Marlins have amassed 9. Reds only 2. Talked about Reyes earlier. He won the National League batting crown a year ago in his final season with the Mets when he hit .337. By far the best batting average he has ever had in a big league season.
Yeah, lifetime he's about a .290 hitter. 277 this year. Still a pretty good on-base percentage. Always dangerous. Guy that every year seems to be among the leaders in triples.
Votto will get the out at second base. Out number 2, forcing Ruggiano.
Good trade-off of runners there for the Marlins. Not very often that your number 3 hitter is faster than your number 2 hitter.
Now it's Giancarlo Stanton. He has not hurt the Reds yet tonight with a strikeout and a pop-up and a walk. Here he is with a runner aboard, 2 out. Reds, by the way, will have Hannigan, Andrusic, and then the top of the order, Phillips, in the top of the 8th. Series continues here tomorrow night. Same start time, 7:10. That means Reds live with Jeff Pecoro at 6:30. 17-game winner Johnny Cueto against lefty Mark Burley. That is an opening day rematch right there. And Sunday afternoon, Matt Latos against Ricky Nolasco. That opening day start, both pitchers threw very well. Cueto defeated Burley in a 4-0 Reds win. Latos and Nolasco, that was a rematch, or will be a rematch of Game 2. Game 1 by Miami, 8-3, with the starters getting the decisions. Bronson Arroyo was the starter in Game 3 of that opening series. He went against Carlos Zambrano Well, he's had a peak and valley year, hasn't he? Carlos Zambrano now in their bullpen.
Shouldn't be a big surprise to the Marlins, should it?
No. Wild swing there and an out of Giancarlo Stanton. So the big guy has not been a factor offensively for the Marlins here tonight. Brought to you by Miller Lite. Let's go back this date, September 14th, 1990, 22 years ago. Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. back to back in Seattle. First dad, then son against the Angels. Our Miller time moment of the night. This game progresses to the 8th. New pitcher on to face Dusty's club. The fellow that signed that big deal prior to the year, 3 years, $27 million to be the closer. No longer in that role, Chris, for this Marlins team.
You're right about that. Who would have thought at the very beginning of the year that you would see Heath Bell in the 8th inning, not for a 2-inning save, but as a setup guy? But that's where he is right now. He was a closer. In fact, you look back over the last 3 seasons, he leads in major leagues in saves with over 151, but he is no longer the closer here. Earned run average high, walks, hits, all have contributed to the fact that he's been moved out of that closer spot and into the setup role.
And it really all started for him in that first series against the Reds. He threw very well in game 2, 1 inning, 1 strikeout, but gave up 2 runs, 4 hits in 1/3 of an inning in the bottom of the 9th in the final game of that series on Sunday, April the 18th. Highlighted in the end by a pinch hit infield single by Scott Rowland that gave the Reds the win. Solano will throw out Hannigan here for out number 1. Again, a reminder, tonight's Ohio Lottery Mega Millions jackpot sitting at $12 million. $12 million. Drawing is at 11, closing in on just 90 or so minutes away. One out. Now Xavier Paul will bat for Andrusic. So the Reds will employ a 3rd pitcher come the bottom of the 8th. One inning, 1 walk, 1 strikeout for Andrusic. Here's Paul. Paul overall hitting .305. Alfredo Simon in the Reds pen. .305 with a home run. 9 for 27. A .333 average coming off the bench. Jacob Turner, meanwhile, 7 innings of no-run, 2-hit baseball. Boy, if you're the Marlins, you've got to be thrilled with what he did.
Now, you're not kidding about that. I mean, you're going to get a chance to pitch and stick in this rotation this year, and he's opening a lot of eyes around baseball. Just a young kid. Turner's only 21 years old. Well, that's a danger when you're a team like the Detroit Tigers and you give up on a player like Jacob Turner at 21 years old, and you don't make the playoffs that year because you made a big push to get some veteran players. And those players they've gotten haven't exactly helped them push them over the top.
No, they have not.
And now you send this kid off, and at 21 he starts finding his way throughout the major leagues. Marlins may have found a little diamond in the rough. Not that a former #1 draft pick is ever a diamond in the rough, but Marlins could benefit in the long run.
Turner looking for his first big league win as a Marlin. He won one game against the White Sox on the 22nd of July for Detroit. Then the next day he was traded. 2-2 to Paul. Phillips waiting next. Reds trying to avoid being shut out here tonight. They've only been shut out twice all year, both times on the road. Once at Yankee Stadium, once in San Francisco.
Yeah, one of those games was the game started by Bronson Arroyo.
Wouldn't that be something, Chris, if the Reds end up playing the Giants in the first round of the playoffs? Dusty going back to his the city where he played some but managed for years and years. They love him out there.
There is no doubt about that. When they had that reunion team, what was it, 1994? They had a...
I think it was 99 team.
99 team?
Yeah.
And they introduced a lot of players who came back. Of course, Dusty Baker managed that ball club. He got the loudest and the longest standing ovation of anybody.
There's the 10th pinch hit, base hit for Xavier Paul this year. Only the third hit of this game for the Reds.
Well, that's a good, solid approach by Xavier Paul. I mean, you watch him in the batter's box, you realize there's not a lot of wasted movement. He's not in there trying to go deep. He's just trying to put a nice flat swing on the baseball, and he stays right on that pitch. Pretty good pitch right down there at the bottom end of the strike zone.
I'll stand corrected on that. That was the 0-2 team they were honoring. Yeah.
Well, I was only off by 8 years.
The 0-2 team they were honoring. Phillips scalded the ball back in the third, lined it right at then third baseman Greg Dobbs. It was 0 for 3 tonight. Reds still looking for their first inning with multiple base runners tonight. They've really been held in check by this Marlins club. Pitching staff that really has not done that well this year. There's one. There's two. Double play hit into by Brandon Phillips, putting an end to the top of the 8th inning. Park with half-price student tickets in September, thanks to First Student. Cheer on your Red Legs and enjoy up to 4 tickets at half price on select sections for Sunday through Thursday home games during the rest of the regular season. For tickets and details, call 513-381-REDS or visit reds.com. They're delirious down here in Miami tonight. This crowd at Marlins Park, it seats 37,000 plus, so it's more of an intimate ballpark than some others, certainly where they came from.
It seems bigger than a 37,000 fan ballpark. I mean, it just seems like a much bigger place than that. It doesn't seem quite as intimate, and maybe it's hard to do that with a retractable roof. It's a nice ballpark, lots of colors. And one of my friends who came down here and watched the game for the first time texts me and says, looks like a large putt-putt. Of course.
With all the
colors and everything, yeah. And they've got the
home run sculpture out there.
Home run sculpture, and all we need is a couple of windmills and some ramps, and we're in there. I like this ballpark, though. I really do.
Like it better if the Reds could come out with a couple of wins.
No doubt about that. Alfredo Simon is charged with trying to keep the Marlins at bay. He's been good. I mean, except for one bad outing against the Padres way back when. He's been lights out. I mean, an earned run average under 2. I think the best inning he pitched all year long was just the other day when he had the bases loaded, nobody out, in an extra inning ball game. That was a game that went 14 innings against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and he got out of that jam without a run. Simon's so happy to be right now back in Miami. That's where he lives in the wintertime and has his family down here. Gets to see his children and his wife.
Well, this Chapman lives down here in Miami now in the offseason. Gil Velasquez leading off in the 8th inning. We see him bat for the first time. He took over in the lineup for Carlos Lee, who left with an undisclosed as of this date time injury on that play out at second base back in the 5th inning. Simon fools Velasquez big time there and gets the strikeout. Saturday mornings, make sure to tune in at 9 a.m. for Game Time with Urban Meyer. Before the Buckeyes kick off, Coach Meyer will preview every opponent, give you the inside scoop on Ohio State's prep for that upcoming game. It's Game Time with Urban Meyer, Saturdays at 9, Fox Sports Ohio. Note passed along that Lee left with a strained neck. He was out with an injury earlier in the year when the Reds were playing Houston, so really haven't seen much of the big guy this year. Joey stays with this, and there are 2 out. Reds pitching has had, that went to Bronson Arroyo, only 1-1-2-3 inning tonight. That was the 2nd inning. Here's Simon about to do it, hopefully in the 8th. Set the stage for the 9th. Reds will need some base runners. They'll go in trailing, hopefully no more than 4-0.
I really think that score looks a lot worse than Bronson Arroyo pitched. I mean, they scored 2 runs in that inning, and that was in the 5th inning. Really probably should have only had 1.
Valdez will throw out Solano, and so there's the 1-2-3, bottom of the 8th, and so the Reds have one last crack at it. Top of the 9th upcoming. The Washington-Atlanta game as the Reds try to catch that Nationals club for the #1 seed. Chris Medlin of the Braves getting it done down there in that 1-1 affair. 13 strikeouts in 7 innings for Medlin. A 1-1 game. Reds started today 3 in the loss column behind the Nationals, and here's a look at what the ball clubs have left. The Reds have a dozen games on the road. The Nationals have but 9. They have the Phillies in 2 separate series. A hot Milwaukee club left also. Reds have their work cut out for them. Try to become the #1 seed and thus wait one more day to get their postseason schedule started. If they are the #1 seed, they'll start on Sunday, October the 7th on the road. If they're the #2, where they are now, or the 3, they would start on Saturday the 6th. If they're the 2, they start on the road. If they're the 3 seed, and they right now have the games in the loss column lead of 5 over the Giants for the #2 seed, they would start on the road as of right now at San Francisco. Meanwhile, the fellow who has inherited the closer's role for the Marlins, Steve Cishek, is in.
He's trying to not only inherit it but hang on to it. Thought he would be a setup man at the beginning of the year. Good earned run average for Cishek. He's converted now 13 of 17 saves. It's not a save opportunity. Reds down by 4. I think he borrowed somebody's glove. Manuel Domingo's looking for his glove somewhere, and the Marlins closer has it.
One hopper. Solano will throw out Valdez for out #1.
Boy, how do you think that happened?
It's a good question. Maybe somebody's playing a joke on him.
I mean, he knows.
Somebody took the glove and hit it.
Maybe put his hand in that glove and say, this glove's for me. Here he is on TV wearing somebody else's glove. Maybe. Hope he didn't, lift it.
Or maybe he's trying to, he's thinking of switching models to this one.
Not the most sleuth way of doing it. Kind of like borrowing a car and then driving it in the Macy's Day Parade.
Your analogies are always interesting.
Not very accurate, but sometimes interesting.
That fellow Dominguez, by the way, is not on this club. Otto really puts a hammer into this ball, and there's confusion out in left center field, but in the end, that ball is caught by Justin Ruggiano. As long as they get it right, I guess.
That's a homer back home, folks. Good to see Votto hit a ball that far, even though it dies in that big outfield here, left center field.
Two out. The Reds are down to their last crack in Ryan Ludwig. Boy, it's been a long time, isn't it, since they've been manhandled like this. From an offensive standpoint, only 3 hits. Only been shut out, as we mentioned, 2 times. The last time was on June the 28th by Madison Bumgarner out in San Francisco. He one-hit the Reds in that game. He only hit a single by Ryan Hannigan. The other time they were shut out, May the 18th at Yankee Stadium by Andy Pettitte. He went 8, allowed 4 hits, struck out 9 in that game. Dusty's club tonight, tied for the fewest shutouts in the big leagues with Detroit. An out away from being blanked for only the 3rd time this year. Again, as Chris mentioned, this is not a save situation for Cicek. Rather trying to close it out for Jacob Turner. By contrast, have only 6 shutout wins this year. They've been blanked 15 times. They're on the receiving end of a good one tonight. They won that final game in Washington last week by a shutout 8-0 win. So it's only been 3 games in between shutouts if they get it. Ludwig trying to do something about that here. It's 3-2 pitch. And it is ball 4. So the Reds are given their 3rd walk. Comes with 2 out in the 9th.
Yeah, Ryan Ludwig has a couple of them.
Chad Godin, a right-hander, up and throwing in the Marlins pen. Bruce tonight 0 for 3. And he pops it up. Velasquez. And the Marlins win it as the Reds are shut out for only the 3rd time this year. Tonight it comes at the hands of Ozzie Guillen's Miami Marlins as the Marlins take the first game of this series 4-0. That's a dominant pitching performance right there.
It is. I mean, and we have seen it many times recently, especially when a right-handed starter, even a very young right-handed starter like a Tyler Cloyd, or tonight Jacob Turner, takes them out against the Reds and completely shuts this offense down. And a 4-0 game for the Marlins over the Reds. Not the way you want to start the road trip, but the Reds have a big margin of error right now, so I'm sure Dusty Baker not panicking.
4-0 the final. We'll come back with more from Miami, Florida right after this.